30 Zen stories to help you perfect yourself and change your destiny. Welcome back, everyone, to Mind Podcast. Reading and enjoying these small classic Zen stories will help you grasp the unique allure of Zen thought in a natural and comfortable way. You'll understand that although Zen is profound, its form is exceedingly simple and lively, touching the heart without the need for words. Each story in this book fully embodies the wisdom of Zen masters and Buddhist scriptures, containing countless genuine meanings of life, making it an excellent book for life enlightenment. 1. Eating honey to repent. When Zen master Ikkyu was still a young novice, he already had a Zen demeanor. One day, a disciple gave his master a jar of honey. The master, planning to go out, thought, leaving this honey in the room is unsafe, Ikkyu might eat it. So he called Ikkyu over and instructed, Ikkyu, a disciple just gave us this jar of poison. It's very potent and extremely dangerous, so don't eat it out of greed. Ikkyu was very intelligent and understood his master's hint. After the master left, Ikkyu drank all the honey. After finishing it, he wondered how to face his master upon his return. With quick thinking, he conveniently broke his master's favorite vase. When the master returned, Ikkyu pretended to cry loudly on the floor, saying, Master, I have committed an unforgivable sin. Ikkyu, what did you do wrong? Master, I broke your favorite vase. Ikkyu, how could you be so careless and break such a precious vase? Ikkyu, feigning deep remorse, said, Master, I knew I shouldn't have broken your vase, so to repent, I decided to take my own life. That's why I drank the poison. This kind of repentance left the master in a bittersweet dilemma, both laughing and crying at once. Zen wisdom. Zen principles, when applied to spiritual cultivation, can indeed illuminate and reveal the true nature of the mind. When applied to daily life, they also hold miraculous benefits. Zen is wisdom, the wisdom of prajna, and the wisdom of humor. Ikkyu, even as a child, was so quick-witted, using such a method to repent. Isn't this the humor in Zen principles? 2. Clearing the clouds to see the sky. A devotee asked Zen master Buddha Guang, the sutras say that worshipping 100,000 Buddhas is not as good as worshipping one selfless practitioner. What fault do the 100,000 Buddhas have? And what virtue does the selfless practitioner possess? Zen master Dao Guang answered with a verse. A piece of white cloud stretches across the valley. How many returning birds lose their nests? This means that because of an additional cloud, birds returning to their nests get lost and cannot find their way home. By worshipping Buddhas, you focus on external objects, thereby losing yourself. By worshipping a selfless practitioner, you transcend all distinctions. Although the 100,000 Buddhas have no faults, the selfless practitioner can help you recognize yourself. The devotee then asked, why do we still use wooden fish and drums in a pure Buddha hall? Zen master Dao Guang replied with another verse. When striking the wooden fish and beating the drum, it reaches beyond the clouds to the stars. This means that the pure Buddha hall needs to use the wooden fish and the drum with no ulterior motives. The wooden fish, which never closes its eyes, symbolizes diligence and perseverance. The drum is beaten to remove karma and increase blessings. The sounds of the wooden fish and drum reach beyond the clouds, transcending the sufferings of reincarnation. The devotee further asked, if one can practice Buddhism at home, why must one become a monk? Zen master Dao Guang replied, the peacock, though beautiful, can't fly as high as the swan. This implies that while practicing Buddhism at home is good, it cannot compare to the focused and dedicated practice of a monk. The peacock's colorful feathers cannot help it fly higher than the swan. The clouds in the devotee's mind were finally cleared by Zen master Dao Guang. Some questions, when unresolved, can feel like a tangled mess. But once explained, it's like clearing the clouds to see the blue sky. 3. The length of life. One day, as the Buddha awaited his disciples' return from alms, he asked, Disciples, you've been busy collecting alms today. What is the purpose of it? The disciples respectfully replied, Buddha, we seek to nourish our bodies to maintain our physical form and achieve purity and liberation in life. The Buddha looked at them with serene eyes and asked, so how long do you think the lifespan of the physical body is? Buddha, sentient beings generally live for several decades. Confidently answered one disciple. The Buddha shook his head, saying, you do not understand the true nature of life. Another disciple then said solemnly, "Human life is like flowers and grass. In spring, they bloom brilliantly, but in winter they wither and turn to dust." The Buddha smiled approvingly and said, "You understand the impermanence of life, but your understanding of the Dharma is still superficial." Another voice, filled with sorrow, said, "Buddha, life feels as fleeting as an insect that lives from morning to evening, lasting no more than a single day. Yes, you observe the brevity of life, moving closer to understanding the essence of the Dharma, but there's still more to grasp." As the Buddha's denials and hints continued, the disciple's intuition was increasingly stimulated. Then another disciple declared, "Buddha, our lives are like morning dew, appearing beautiful but vanishing in an instant under the sun's rays." The Buddha silently smiled. The disciples discussed the length of life with even more fervor. Then one disciple stood up and proclaimed, "Buddha, I believe that human life is but a single breath." This statement astonished everyone, and they all looked to the Buddha for enlightenment. "Yes, that's correct. Remember, disciples, not to be lazy or complacent, thinking life is long. Life is like a drop of dew, a fleeting moment, like flowers and grass that last a season, like humans who live for several decades. Life is but a breath in and out. Seize every moment of life, strive ceaselessly, and advance courageously. The length of life is just a breath in and out. Only by understanding this can one truly grasp the essence of life." For like water to water, Zen Master Xuanxia met Zen Master Xuefeng on the road. Xuefeng said, "A monk from afar passed away last night, and I feel deep sorrow. This reminds me of a question someone asked me a few days ago." Xuanxia asked, "What was the question?" Xuefeng replied, "They asked me what happens after a person dies." Xuanxia inquired, "How did you answer?" Xuefeng said, "I told him, after death, it's like ice returning to water." Xuanxia turned to the dark night sky and slowly said, "Yes, that makes sense, but I don't fully agree. Nonetheless, your answer has inspired me." Xuefeng asked, "How would you answer?" Xuanxia bowed his head and clasped his hands, saying, "After death, it's like water returning to water." Xuefeng was deeply impressed. The next day, a monk asked Xuanxia, "What is my true life?" Xuanxia coldly replied, "What do you want your true life to be? Life is about wanting and losing, gaining and losing. Fear of death is life. Hating life is transcending death. In the sea of humanity, one doesn't notice the pebbles ahead." Zen is not mystical. It is a way of life that can awaken our intuition, nourish the blossoming of life, give us smiles and joy, and help us find our true value. 5. The Beautiful Temple. Buddha was very skilled at explaining Zen principles to his disciples through stories, and the disciples never tired of listening. One day, Buddha told the disciples a story. A king wanted to renovate a temple in the capital. He sent out for highly skilled designers, hoping they could beautify and dignify the temple. Two groups of workers were summoned. One group of famous carpenters and painters, and the other group of monks. Since the king was unsure whose skills were superior, he decided to give them an equal chance to compete. He asked each group to refurbish a small temple located opposite each other. After 3 days, the king would come to inspect the results. The carpenters requested over 100 different kinds of paint in various colors and many tools, while the monks surprisingly only needed a few simple clean tools like cloths and water buckets. After 3 days, the king came to inspect the results. First, he viewed the temple refurbished by the carpenters. They celebrated the completion of their work with drums and gongs, showcasing their craftsmanship with intricate art and vibrant colors. The king nodded with satisfaction. Next, the king turned to inspect the temple renovated by the monks. To his astonishment, the monks had not painted any colors at all. They had merely cleaned the walls, furniture, windows, and all the items in the temple, revealing their natural colors polished to a shine like mirrors. The vivid colors of the clouds in the sky, the swaying tree shadows in the wind, and even the colorful temple opposite became part of the beautiful scenery reflected in this temple. Its beauty lay in simply being a peaceful receiver of all these elements. Zen wisdom. Our hearts are like a temple. They do not need to be adorned with intricate decorations. It is enough to cleanse the heart, allowing its inherent beauty to shine forth. 6. Time does not age. The disciple Daichi, a student of Zen master Buddha Guang, returned after studying for 20 years and shared his experiences and knowledge with Buddha Guang. Buddha Guang listened with a faint smile. Finally, Daichi asked, "Master, have you been well these past 20 years?" Buddha Guang replied, "Very well. I have been lecturing, teaching Dharma, annotating sutras, writing scriptures, and traveling through the ocean of Dharma. There is no life more joyous than this. I am joyfully busy every day." Daichi, with concern, said, "Master, you should rest more." Late at night, Buddha Guang told Daichi, "Go rest now. We can talk more later." The next morning, Daichi heard the sound of the wooden fish and chanting from Buddha Guang's room. Buddha Guang was tirelessly instructing waves of devotees coming to worship, explaining the Dharma. In the meditation hall, if there were no students reporting their insights, he prepared materials for the followers. He was always busy. Daichi rarely found a moment when Buddha Guang was not engaged. Seizing a free moment, Daichi asked, "Master, we have been apart for 20 years. You are still so busy every day, yet you don't seem to age. How is that?" Buddha Guang responded, "I do not feel the passing of time." Zen wisdom, not feeling the passage of time essentially means there is no concept of aging in the heart. Confucius said, "The noble person is so engaged in their pursuit that they forget about eating, so joyful that they forget their worries, and do not realize that old age is approaching." 7. The first in tea ceremony. Sen no Rikyu is the founder of the Japanese tea ceremony and was a distinguished disciple of the famous Zen master Ikkyu. He held an extremely prestigious position in Japanese society. Once a man named Uji Rinjoan invited Sen no Rikyu to his tea ceremony. Rikyu accepted the invitation and brought several disciples along. Rinjoan was overjoyed yet very nervous. As he served tea to everyone, his hands trembled, causing the teaspoon to fall and the teapot to spill, making a mess. Rikyu's disciples snickered secretly. However, when the ceremony ended, Rikyu praised, "Today's tea ceremony by the host was the best in the world." His disciples, finding Rikyu's words unbelievable, asked him on the way back, "The tea ceremony was so clumsy, how could it be the best in the world?" Rikyu replied, "Rinjoan wanted us to enjoy the best tea, focusing wholeheartedly on making it. Because of this, he did not mind the mishap." This sincerity is what matters most. In the tea ceremony, sincerity is paramount. Regardless of how beautiful the tea setup is or how luxurious the tea utensils are, without genuine intention, it is meaningless. Zen wisdom. In the natural world, small seeds like peaches and pears can grow into vast trees bearing countless fruits. Likewise, inner sincerity manifests clearly in transforming small gestures into great deeds. Therefore, in cultivation, sincerity is essential. 8. The swordsmanship must be decisive. In modern Japan, there were two top swordsmen, Miyamoto Musashi and Yagyu Jubei. Musashi was Jubei's master. When Jubei asked Musashi how long it would take to become a master swordsman, the following dialogue ensued. "Master, how long will it take me to become a master if I strive hard?" Jubei asked. "A lifetime," Musashi replied. "I can't wait that long. If I work very hard, how long will it take?" Jubei persisted. 10 years, maybe. But my father is getting older, and I must serve him soon. What if I train even harder?" Jubei asked. "Then it will take 30 years, Musashi answered. "Why is it that the more effort I put in, the longer it takes?" Jubei wondered. "People like you who are impatient and seek quick results never succeed," Musashi explained. Jubei understood the principle and decided to stay and learn from Musashi. Musashi taught Jubei not by discussing swordsmanship, but by having him do chores like cooking, washing, and cleaning without mentioning the sword. 3 years passed, and Jubei continued to do these chores, feeling uncertain about his future. One day, Musashi struck him from behind with a wooden stick. The next day, while Jubei was cooking, Musashi struck him again. From then on, Jubei stayed on guard, ready to defend against sudden attacks. Gradually, he reached a higher state of awareness, and Musashi was satisfied. Eventually, Jubei became the most renowned swordsman in Japan. Zen wisdom. Zen involves transcending external forms and seeking absolute liberation, a fundamental aspect of Zen practice. Embrace tasks without force or obsession, and great achievements will come naturally. 9. Knowing when to let go. When Zen master Huiyuan was young, he enjoyed traveling to various places. Once, he met a man on the road who loved smoking. They traveled a long way together through the mountains and eventually rested by a river. The man offered Zen master Huiyuan a bag of tobacco. Huiyuan gladly accepted the gift, and as they talked, finding great harmony in their conversation, the man also gave him a pipe and some more tobacco. After parting ways, Huiyuan thought to himself, "This thing makes people feel very comfortable, but it will disturb my meditation. Over time, it will be hard to quit this habit, so it's better to stop early." Thus, he threw away both the pipe and the tobacco. A few years passed, and Huiyuan became fascinated by the I Ching. It was winter, and the weather was freezing. He wrote a letter to his teacher, asking for some cotton-padded clothes. However, the letter took a long time, and winter passed. The snow on the mountain began to melt, yet the clothes never arrived, nor did he hear back from the messenger. Huiyuan then used the I Ching to divine the situation and found that the letter had not reached his teacher. He thought, "The I Ching may be accurate, but if I become engrossed in this, how can I fully devote myself to Zen practice?" From then on, he no longer engaged with the I Ching. Later, Huiyuan became obsessed with calligraphy, practicing daily and achieving some minor success. Some calligraphers praised him highly. However, he realized, "I am straying from my path again. If I continue this way, I will become a calligrapher instead of a Zen master." So, he devoted himself fully to Zen practice, discarding everything unrelated to Zen, eventually becoming a great master in the Zen tradition. Zen wisdom. Understanding one's goal is certainly precious, but even more precious is the spirit of tireless perseverance towards that goal. Additionally, recognizing when one has deviated from the goal and correcting course immediately is crucial. 10. Sincerity without deceit. During the Song dynasty, there was a Zen master named Dao Kai, who practiced for many years and upon attaining enlightenment, began traveling to spread Zen principles to the public. Zen master Dao Kai traveled to many places and served as the abbot of several temples, including Jingren Temple and Tianning Temple. His reputation reached the emperor, who greatly admired his work and decided to bestow upon him a robe to honor his virtuous efforts in promoting Buddhism, along with the title of Master Ding Zhao. Upon hearing this news, Zen master Dao Kai surprisingly and firmly refused to accept these honors. The emperor then sent Li Shaoshou from Kaifeng Prefecture to personally deliver the emperor's goodwill message to Dao Kai. However, the Zen master still refused to accept the honors. Frustrated by Dao Kai's repeated cold rejections, the emperor ordered the local officials to arrest him, hoping punishment would change his mind. The local official, who had previously heard Dao Kai preach, deeply understood the master's honest and loyal nature. When he arrived at the temple, he dismissed his subordinates and spoke softly to Dao Kai. "Master, you look very weak and pale. Are you ill?" Dao Kai shook his head and said, "No." Seeing that his hints were not working, the official directly said, "Master, if you claim to be ill, the emperor will surely excuse your previous hardships of traveling and teaching." Still, Dao Kai shook his head, calmly replying, "If I am not ill, I cannot pretend to be ill just to avoid punishment." The official, moved and exasperated, had no choice but to reluctantly escort the Zen master to Sishou. Zen wisdom, sincerity without deceit, not pretending, keeping promises, and practically seeking progress. Sincerity is a fortress of character. 11. Uninfluenced by conflict. An old monk was teaching a young novice how to preserve shiitake mushrooms. The old monk instructed the novice to wrap each mushroom carefully in plastic bags. The novice thought it was a tedious process but followed the instructions. In the fall, the monk asked the novice to retrieve the stored mushrooms to eat. The novice hurried to get them and soon returned, saying, "Master, the mushrooms have all rotted and are inedible." The master calmly said, "Open some other bags and check." The novice did as told and came back smiling. "Only one mushroom in this basket is spoiled. The rest are perfectly fine and edible." The master used this to teach the novice, life is like a basket of mushrooms. If you carefully wrap each conflict like wrapping mushrooms in plastic bags, isolated failures and setbacks won't affect the larger success. Most of the mushrooms in the basket are still good and edible. Thus, Zen teaches that partial failures are inevitable, but one must trust that future success will come and not be discouraged by minor mistakes. Zen wisdom. Conflict is inevitable in all things, but how to manage it is crucial. Facing all opposites with a calm heart ensures one is not affected by fear of conflict. 12. No work, no eat. Zen master Baizhang Huaihai from the Tang dynasty once said, "If you do not work, how can you eat? A day without work is a day without food." This spirit has become a model for monasteries for thousands of years. After succeeding Zen master Mazu Daoyi, the founder of the monastery system, Baizhang established a series of systematic rules, such as the monastic rules of Baizhang and the monastic pure rules, which provided a framework for monastery life. Baizhang advocated for the Zen agricultural life. A day without work is a day without food. He faced many challenges because traditional Buddhism relied on precepts for livelihood, whereas Baizhang changed this by promoting agricultural Zen for self-sufficiency. Some even criticized him as a heretic. Baizhang lived at the peak of Baizhang Mountain, hence the name. Every day, besides leading the monks in practice, he personally engaged in labor-intensive work, ensuring self-sufficiency in daily life. Despite his advanced age, he continued to carry firewood up the mountain and plant crops in the fields, embodying the spirit of agricultural Zen. His disciples, out of concern for their aging master, pleaded with him not to undertake heavy labor, but Baizhang insisted, saying, "I am an undeserving worker. If people do not work, won't they become useless?" The disciples, unable to stop him, hid his tools, but Baizhang resorted to fasting in protest. His disciples anxiously asked, "Why don't you eat or drink?" He replied, "A day without work is a day without food." The disciples reluctantly returned his tools, allowing him to work freely. Baizhang's principle of self-sufficiency not only followed the life of a day without work is a day without food, but also called for the spirit of carrying water and firewood is also Zen. Regardless of chanting or practicing Zen, the true essence of practice is not an excuse for laziness. Work is the foundation of all activities, embodying the spirit of no work, no eat. Zen wisdom. Some believe that practicing Zen requires complete isolation from worldly affairs, not even engaging in work, just chanting. In reality, not working and disconnecting from life are not true Zen. 13. Calming the storm. A Zen master was traveling and encountered someone who disliked him. For several days, this person used various methods to insult the master. Finally, the master turned around and asked, "If someone offers you a gift, but you refuse to accept it, to whom does the gift belong?" The person replied, "It belongs to the person who offered the gift." The master smiled and said, "That's right. If I do not accept your insults, then you are insulting yourself." The sixth patriarch said that people have six senses and that we live with them, and we cannot sever these six senses. We cannot sever the relationship between our senses and their objects. Thus, we must determine not to let our minds be contaminated by the myriad external scenes and not be influenced by what is outside our sensory perceptions to achieve the true nature of constant freedom. Zen wisdom. Just as the master said, if the mind is not disturbed by others, using stillness to control movement and calmness to counteract evil, one will not suffer and be swayed by any external intrusion. The Snow Peak and the Undelivered Letter. Snow Peak Temple on Mount Siming in Ningbo, Zhejiang, has produced many eminent monks over the generations, all taking the name Snow Peak. However, in Zen records, the Snow Peak Zen master refers specifically to Zen master Snow Peak Chongqian of the authentic lineage. Zen master Snow Peak had a compassionate heart, tirelessly spreading the meaning of the Buddhist teachings, helping people understand the essence of life. He established a unique and new style in the Zen forest. Scholars and monks from all over competed to study and prove themselves. After arriving at Snow Peak Temple, he adorned the Buddha land, turning it into a new ancestral hall of the Yunmen Zen tradition. At that time, other Zen schools were declining, but only the Yunmen school thrived. Hence it was called the Revival of Yunmen. Initially, Zen master Snow Peak met the magistrate Zheng Hui by the Huai River. Zheng Hui asked, "Zen master, where are you going?" Snow Peak politely replied, "Maybe to Chentan or to see the Zen platform." Zheng Hui suggested, "The abbot of Lingyan Temple, Zen master San, is very kind to me. I will write you a letter of introduction. He will surely treat you well." But when Zen master Snow Peak arrived at Lingyan Temple, he did not present the letter of introduction to the abbot. Instead, he stayed with the others for 3 years. 3 years later, Zheng Hui, on an assignment to Zhejiang, visited Lingyan Temple to find Snow Peak, but none of the monks knew of him. Zheng Hui didn't believe it and personally searched the monks' quarters, eventually finding Snow Peak. He asked, "Why didn't you go to see the abbot? Did you lose my letter of introduction?" Snow Peak replied, "No, but I am a Snow River monk seeking nothing, so I could not be your letter carrier." He then handed back the untouched letter to Zheng Hui, and they laughed heartily. Zheng Hui took Snow Peak to meet Abbot San, who appreciated his talent. Later, when Kuifeng Temple in Suzhou needed an abbot, Snow Peak was recommended for the position. Zen wisdom: seeking nothing, one's virtue stands tall. Seeking help from others cannot compare to relying on oneself. As long as one strives with effort, there is no fear that one's talents will go unnoticed. Efforts will eventually be rewarded. 15. The Dai House and Genuine Love. Zen masters often tell unexpected stories, and there is a classic love story in the Zen records of Japan. During the Edo period in Japan, the profession of courtesans was prevalent. These courtesans were meticulously selected for their beauty and intelligence. They were well versed in music, chess, calligraphy, painting, psychology, and romance, primarily engaging with officials and aristocrats, holding high social status. The most outstanding among them were called Taiyu, who could only associate with lords and wealthy merchants. At that time, the most famous Taiyu was Kawai. She had great influence and usually entertained only feudal lords or wealthy merchants, each engagement costing 15 pieces of gold. A dyer named Lao Ju greatly admired Taiyu Kawai. However, due to his status, he could not approach her. What should he do? Eventually, he thought of a way. He saved every penny for 3 years, working hard to accumulate 15 pieces of gold. He then falsely claimed to be a wealthy merchant from Osaka, seeking to meet Taiyu Kawai. To his delight, he succeeded. Lao Ju finally met the person he longed for day and night, Taiyu Kawai. Upon parting, Taiyu Kawai said to him, "Please come again." Others would usually say, "I will come again," but Lao Ju sincerely replied, "It will take me another 3 years to return." Taiyu Kawai was deeply moved. After some questioning, she learned that he had worked hard for 3 years just to meet her. "When I gain my freedom, I will marry you. To show my sincerity, I give you these 300 pieces of gold I have saved," Kawai told Lao Ju. Eventually, Taiyu Kawai gained her freedom and married Lao Ju. The couple worked together, establishing the #1 Dai house in Edo. Zen wisdom: everything has its cause and effect. Good causes bring good effects. Sincerity is the greatest virtue, naturally leading to the greatest reward. All is empty. Life is not about enduring suffering, but seeking happiness. However, such happiness is often fleeting and suffering seems endless. Humanity often doesn't know why. Thus, humanity is equally ignorant and suffers from having, while no one suffers from not having. The root of suffering requires self-exploration to gradually understand its rationale. By negating suffering, one can gradually escape it and seek happiness. Zen Master Dao Guang once asked Zen Master Daju Huihai, "Zen Master, with what kind of heart do you usually practice?" Daju replied, "This old monk has no mind to use and no way to practice." Dao Guang said, "Having no mind to use and no way to practice, why do you gather people daily and urge them to practice Zen?" Daju replied, "This old monk has neither a tile above nor land below. Where is the place to gather people?" Dao Guang said, "In reality, you gather people and discuss the way daily." "Isn't that preaching and guiding people?" Daju said, "Don't accuse me wrongly. I don't even have a tongue. How can I lie?" Dao Guang asked, "Does your presence in the mundane world with emotions and relationships and the reality of practicing and preaching Zen mean nothing?" Daju replied, "It is all real." Dao Guang asked, "If it is real, why do you deny it all?" Daju replied, "Falsity must be denied. Reality must also be denied." Finally, Dao Guang attained great enlightenment. Zen Master Daju Huihai denied all embellishments and words, not because he was lying, but because denying everything is the affirmation of all. Zen wisdom: all is empty. Only in this thorough negation can there be absolute affirmation. Calm mind, peaceful world. A devout disciple brought fresh flowers to offer to the Buddha at the temple every day. Zen Master Wude joyfully said, "According to the scriptures, those who often offer flowers to the Buddha will enjoy blessings and a dignified appearance in their next life." The disciple replied, "Every day when I come to the temple to worship the Buddha, I feel as if my soul is cleansed, but when I return home my mind is still troubled. Master, how can I keep a pure heart in the noisy city?" Zen Master Wu Dei asked, "You offer fresh flowers to the Buddha. How do you keep the flowers fresh?" The disciple answered, "The only way to keep flowers fresh is to change the water daily and cut the stems, because the ends of the stems soak in water and can rot, making it hard for them to absorb water and easy for the flowers to wither." Zen Master Wu Dei said, "Keeping a pure heart follows the same principle. Our living environment is like the water in the vase, and we are the flowers. Only by constantly cleaning our body and mind, changing our disposition, and continually repenting, reflecting, and changing our bad habits and shortcomings can we continuously absorb the nourishment of nature." After listening, the disciple was pleased and bowed in gratitude, saying, "Thank you, Master, for enlightening me. I hope to have the opportunity to live close to you, enjoying the life of a Zen practitioner at the temple, hearing the morning bell and evening drum, and experiencing peace through the Bodhi teaching." Zen Master Wu Dei replied, "Your breath is the Bodhi chant, your pulse is the bell and drum, your body is the temple, and your ears are the Bodhi trees. Peace is everywhere. Why wait for the chance to live in the temple? If one cannot eliminate delusions, even living in an ancient temple deep in the mountains cannot maintain the present moment's importance. Zen practice does not require mountains. If the inner fire is extinguished, the heart will be at peace." Zen wisdom. The 28th Patriarch Bodhidharma came to China and transmitted his teachings to Huike and eventually to Huineng, whose stories make people's minds drift into a trance. The idea of directly pointing to the human mind, seeing one's nature, and becoming a Buddha is indeed profound. As Master Hong Yi said, "Zen is natural, without any compulsion." 18. The beggar buys a cake. An elder in a Zen monastery was known for making delicious cakes. The cakes from their monastery were fragrant and sweet, and visitors to the mountain would flock to buy them, enhancing the monastery's prosperity. One day, a beggar dressed in rags came from afar to the monastery, clamoring to try the famous cake. The young monks, seeing the beggar's dirty and shabby appearance, didn't want to let him into the kitchen, leading to a standoff. At that moment, the elder appeared and advised his disciples, "A person who has renounced worldly life must be compassionate. How can you behave like this?" He then personally chose a large cake and respectfully handed it to the beggar. The beggar was deeply moved and after eating the cake, took out his last 3 coins and said, "This is all the money I have from begging. I hope you will accept it." The elder took the coins, put his hands together and said, "May you travel safely." The disciples were puzzled and asked, "Why accept money from a beggar?" The elder replied, "The beggar came from afar just to taste our cake. Shouldn't we let him eat for free? But his gesture of offering all he had shows his understanding of gratitude and respect, so we should accept his coins. This sense of being appreciated and respected may lead him to great success in the future." Decades later, a wealthy merchant came to the mountain to thank the elder for that one meal. This surprised many old monks, as the merchant was none other than the beggar who had offered 3 coins for a cake years ago. Zen wisdom. Offering a cake to a beggar can relieve their hunger, but accepting money from the beggar can preserve their dignity. Filling the stomach solves an immediate need, while preserving dignity can inspire a lifetime. 19. A village of chrysanthemums. One day, a Zen master brought a chrysanthemum plant from the suburbs and planted it in the Zen garden. By the 3rd autumn, the entire Zen garden was filled with blooming chrysanthemums, turning it into a chrysanthemum garden. The fragrant flowers' aroma reached the village below the mountain. Consequently, villagers climbed the mountain to admire the flowers and praised, "The flowers are beautiful." They asked the Zen master for a few plants to take home. After receiving the master's permission, they dug up the roots. People kept coming to ask for flowers until all the chrysanthemums in the Zen garden were taken. Seeing the desolate garden, the disciples lamented to the Zen master, "What a pity, the garden was full of color and fragrance." The Zen master smiled and said, "It is even better this way. In 3 years, this place may become a village of chrysanthemums." The disciples, upon hearing this, smiled brightly. Zen wisdom. Enjoying happiness alone is not as good as sharing it with others. This principle applies to both Confucians and Zen practitioners. 20 afflictions are Bodhi. 3 sad-faced devotees came to seek guidance from Zen master Wu Dai on the same issue. Seeing the master, they asked, "Zen master, how can we live happily?" The master asked in return, "Why do you live?" The first devotee replied, "I live because I don't want to die." The second said, "I live because I want to have many descendants in a better old age." The third said, "I live because my family depends on me, so I cannot die." The Zen master said, "Then you will never live happily." The 3 were no longer sad and asked the Zen master for further guidance. The master said, "You live in fear of death, waiting for old age, and burdened by responsibilities. These are not the wishes of your heart. They have no ideals or meaning, so how can such a life be happy?" The master asked, "What do you consider happiness?" The first person said, "I think money brings happiness." The second said, "I believe love brings happiness." The third said, "I believe fame brings happiness." The master said, "Not so. If you wait to attain those things, you will suffer even more." The 3 were confused and pleaded for further teaching. The master said, "If after gaining wealth, love, and fame, you are plagued by troubles, anxieties, and greater desires, you will naturally suffer more. To feel comfortable, you must have the concept of letting go and transform your thoughts. Wealth must be given to bring joy, love must be offered to bring happiness, and fame must be used to serve others to find joy. Can you do that?" The 3 devotees then attained sudden enlightenment. Zen wisdom: pursuing worldly things cannot be forced. Everything must follow natural laws. Giving leads to receiving, and to receive, one must give. This cycle brings joy. Establishing true, meaningful ideals and striving positively eliminates afflictions and brings comfort. 21 A mouthful of beautiful teeth. Zen Master Buddha Light was always compassionate toward his followers, especially concerning their health needs, education, and daily necessities, ensuring they had an ideal monastic life. One day, the head accountant presented a stack of bills and frowned, saying, "Master, lately, many people are suffering from toothaches. Although toothaches are not severe, they are very uncomfortable. The monastery tries to help everyone, but dental treatments are extremely expensive. One person getting a few teeth replaced costs hundreds of thousands of dollars, creating a significant financial burden. Regardless of the difficulty, we must find a way to help," the master insisted. The accountant replied, "These people benefit from the monastery's generosity, but instead of expressing gratitude, they often criticize and show dissatisfaction. I don't think it's worth spending money on them." Zen Master Buddha Light, seemingly talking to himself, said, "These people may say unworthy things, but we cannot let them go without a mouthful of beautiful teeth. Providing good teeth for everyone, allowing them to enjoy the beauty of life, is the joy of Zen. Whether the followers express gratitude or not, doesn't matter to a Zen master who deeply understands the principle of selflessness." Zen wisdom: all Buddhas and sages wish to serve sentient beings, not only to give them beautiful teeth, but to transform their hearts and cultivate good Buddha nature. 22. Difficult to awaken from clinging. There was a man working outside, crossing mountains and rivers and facing great hardships. While passing a steep mountain slope, he accidentally fell into a deep ravine. Clinging desperately to a dry branch, he managed to save his life, but he was stuck midway, unable to climb up or down. Suddenly he saw the Buddha standing on the cliff, looking at him compassionately. The man called out for help. "Buddha, please save me." The Buddha replied, "Saving you is not difficult, but you must follow my instructions." The man said, "In this situation, how dare I not listen to you? I will do whatever you say." The Buddha then said, "Let go of the branch you are holding onto." Upon hearing this, the man thought, if he let go, he would fall into the abyss and be crushed to death. So he clung even more tightly to the branch. Seeing that the man was stubborn and difficult to enlighten, the Buddha left. If you have the guidance of a virtuous and knowledgeable elder, do not dismiss it lightly. Strive to absorb their good experience, and you will be able to resolve your immediate doubts. However, if you are arrogant or stubbornly clinging to your delusions, it will be difficult to escape your predicament. Zen wisdom: the Buddha said, "All teachings are for the salvation of all beings. Clinging to the teachings without understanding them is truly not understanding one's own nature. Such a person cannot be enlightened by the Buddha and cannot be saved. It is truly pitiable. Turning back is a wall. One must awaken and realize, dispelling doubts here and now. 23. Treasure your nature. Zen Master Shihei was traveling outside when he met a young man. They chatted and didn't notice that night had fallen, so they had to stay in an inn. In the middle of the night, the master heard someone sneaking into his room. He shouted, "Who's there?" The intruder, frightened, knelt down. Zen Master Shihei pulled off the black cloth covering the intruder's face and saw it was the young man from earlier. The master said, "So, you are a thief. How many times have you stolen before?" The young man replied, "Countless times." The master asked, "How long does the pleasure of stealing last?" The young man answered, "It depends on how valuable the stolen goods are." The master pressed on, "At its best, how long does the pleasure last?" The young man replied, "A few days at most, then it's no longer enjoyable." The master said, "If you are a thief, why not make a big haul?" The young man asked, "Do you have experience? How many times have you stolen?" Zen Master Shihei replied, "Only once." The young man, puzzled, asked, "Only once? Is that enough?" The master replied, "Although only once, it is enough for a lifetime." The young man, now very curious, asked, "Where did you get it? Can you teach me?" The master grabbed the young man's collar and said sternly, "Do you understand this? This is a treasure beyond measure. You should devote your life to a righteous career and it will last you a lifetime. Do you understand?" This profound revelation awakened the young man from his delusions. Greed for external wealth had blinded him to the infinite treasure within himself. Realizing this, he became a disciple of Zen Master Shihei and eventually became a famous Zen monk. Zen wisdom. When we think we have nothing, we must remember we possess a noble soul. Failure is insignificant. Start anew. Do not succumb to defeat. Heaven and hell coexist in our perceptions. 24. The integrity of heart. People with a Zen mind do not mind worldly slander and strive to seek clear and honest wealth to save the world. How many can understand this heart? Zen Master Yue Quan was a renowned painter who once said, "It's easy to paint a tiger's skin but difficult to paint its bones. It's easy to paint a person's face but difficult to paint their heart." This not only reflected his artistic pursuit but also had a deeper meaning. Zen Master Yue Quan had a habit of insisting on being paid before he started a painting. One day, a lady requested a painting from him. He asked, "How much can you pay?" She replied dismissively, "Whatever you ask, but I want you to paint in front of everyone at my house." Zen Master Yue Quan agreed and took his good brush to her house. After finishing the painting and receiving his payment, the lady said to everyone, "This artist is only after money. Although his paintings are beautiful, his heart is filthy. Money has tainted his purity, yet he still wants to be a great Zen master. This dirty work of art is not worthy to hang in my living room. It can only adorn my skirt." She then took off her skirt and asked Yue Quan to paint on it. He asked, "How much will you pay?" She replied, "Whatever you want." Yue Quan quoted a very high price and painted as she requested, then left immediately. Everyone wondered why a great Zen master would be so greedy and ignore such humiliation. It turned out that Zen Master Yue Quan's place often suffered from crop failures, and the wealthy wouldn't help the poor. So, he built a granary to store rice for relief efforts. Additionally, his master had vowed to build a temple before he died, and Yue Quan wanted to fulfill his master's wish. After completing these missions, Yue Quan abandoned painting and retired to the mountains, never painting again. When the lady learned the truth, she felt deep remorse, but also gained enlightenment. Zen wisdom. Money is filthy but can be used. The heart is pure but also compassionate. In today's complex society, people no longer pay attention to the innocent words of others. A pure heart is serene. Understanding oneself brings natural peace. 25. The heart and nature are one. A monk came to study under national teacher Huisheng in Nanyang and asked, "Zen is another name for the heart. The heart is unchanging, and true nature does not diminish." The patriarch simplified this into nature. "Master, what is the difference between the heart and nature?" Huisheng replied, "When confused, they are different. When enlightened, they are the same." The monk asked, "The scriptures say that Buddha nature is eternal, but the heart is impermanent. How can you say they are the same? Hui Chong patiently illustrated with an example. You only pay attention to words, not the meaning. For example, when it's cold, water turns to ice. When it's warm, ice melts into water. When confused, nature becomes the heart. When enlightened, the heart merges back into nature. Heart and nature are fundamentally the same, differing only in confusion and enlightenment. The monk finally understood the heart. Though confusion and enlightenment differ, the heart and nature are fundamentally the same. Like gold, which can be made into earrings, rings, bracelets, and other items, they are different but essentially gold. Similarly, heart and nature may seem different, but they are both our true nature. In Buddhism, there are many terms for heart and nature, such as original face, Tathagata store, Dharma body, true form, self-nature, thusness, essence, true heart, prajna, and Zen. These terms aim to help us understand ourselves. Zen Wiz, the heart is Buddha. Heart and nature are one. Buddha nature is equal. Self-trust is self-establishment. This is the fundamental thought of practitioners. Zen education. In the Zen monastery where Zen master Xian'ai resided, there was a student monk who often sneaked out at night to have fun. One night, Zen master Xian'ai discovered a high stool at the corner of the wall. Realizing someone was sneaking out, he quietly put the stool away and stood in its place, waiting for the student monk to return. Late at night, the monk came back, unaware that the stool was gone, and jumped down, landing on Zen master Xian'ai's head before hitting the ground. The monk was shocked to see the master and didn't know what to do. However, Zen master Xian'ai did not scold him. Instead, he comforted him, saying, "It's late, the dew is heavy, take care of your health and quickly go inside to put on some more clothes." On another occasion, a couple was arguing. Zen master Xian'ai advised them, "Even thick snow melts when the sun rises. Cold rice becomes warm when the fire burns. Husbands and wives live together because of fate, and they should be like the sun warming each other, like fire making each other passionate. I hope you respect and love each other." The couple stopped arguing and returned to a peaceful life. Zen wisdom. The best education is love, using encouragement instead of scolding, care instead of punishment, which brings better educational outcomes. Silent Zen Temple. During the later Han Dynasty of the Five Dynasties, Lu Wang invited Zen Master Yunmen and the monks from his temple to the palace for a summer retreat. While in the palace, they were respectfully asked about the Dharma by the palace maids, as Lu Wang was a devout believer. Consequently, discussions on Zen and Dharma teachings were held daily, making the place very lively. The monks would preach to the palace maids and eunuchs. However, Zen Master Yunmen remained silent, meditating quietly on one side, making the palace maids afraid to approach him for guidance. A court official intentionally asked Zen Master Yunmen about the essence of the Dharma, but Yunmen remained silent. The official, instead of being offended, respected him even more and posted a poem in front of the Jade Hall. Great wisdom cultivates Zen. Zen should be silent rather than noisy. A myriad of clever speeches are not as good as the truth. Zen should ultimately remain unsaid. The true Zen practitioner remains silent like thunder. Although no words are spoken, it is a profound revelation. True Zen masters, like wandering cranes in the mountains, wear 3 pieces of clothing, moving with the wind. Even with auspicious opportunities and luxurious palaces, they are not tempted or swayed by power. This is the true realm of Zen, deserving of reverence. Zen wisdom. Silence is the best method of Zen practice. First practice active work, then passive work, gradually progressing to sitting meditation, reaching a state of no self and no ego, where external disturbances cannot penetrate. 28 Worldly eyes see nothing. During the assembly at Mount Gridvakuta, the Buddha held a 10-colored mani gem and asked the 4 heavenly kings, "What color is this mani gem?" After examining it, each heavenly king gave a different answer: green, yellow, red, white. The Buddha then withdrew the gem and asked, "What color is the mani gem in my hand now?" The 4 heavenly kings, puzzled, answered in unison, "Buddha, there is nothing in your hand now, no mani gem." The Buddha said, "I showed you a worldly gem, and you distinguished its colors. But the true precious gem before your eyes, you did not notice. How confused you are." The 4 heavenly kings, upon hearing this, gained insight. The mani gem symbolizes our true Buddha nature. People in the world are often preoccupied with chasing wealth and honor, missing the true essence of life. Zen wisdom. Zen values the sudden enlightenment of the true self, revealing our nature. People are often trapped by desires and materialism, losing their true nature. Zen aims to awaken this nature, freeing our perceptions and hearts. 29 Drop of Water Enlightenment. Zen Master Nissen was very meticulous about cleanliness and bathed every evening. One day, as the bath water was too hot, he asked his young disciple to bring a bucket of cold water. The disciple obediently brought the water but carelessly spilled the leftover water on the ground. Nissen scolded him, saying, "Foolish boy, why waste even a drop of water? Everything, big or small, has its use. You could water the plants or flowers and give life to the water." Hearing this, the young disciple became enlightened and changed his Dharma name to Drip of Water. This monk later became known as Monk Drip of Water and was highly respected. Zen wisdom. Helping others when needed can be as simple as adding firewood in winter. 30 That is Hell. Zen Master Hakuin of the Edo period in Japan was a restorer of the Rinzai school. He shunned fame and lived in small rural temples, spreading the Dharma through writing and teaching. His disciples, such as Tori Enji and Gassen Joseki, were highly intelligent and talented. A samurai visited Zen Master Hakuin, asking, "Zen Master, is hell and paradise real or fictitious? If real, can you personally show me?" Hakuin harshly insulted the samurai's honor, calling him a hypocrite, a rogue. The samurai, though shocked, remained calm, controlling his anger. But when Hakuin mocked his sword skills, the samurai could no longer contain his rage. Drawing his sword, he threatened Hakuin, saying, "You bald-headed rogue, how dare you insult me?" The samurai's eyes blazed with fury, and his sword pointed at Hakuin. Unfazed, Hakuin said, "Didn't you ask to see hell? This is hell." The samurai, realizing his mistake, calmed down and apologized. "I'm sorry, Zen Master. I lost my temper." Hakuin smiled and said, "And this is paradise." Zen teachings say, "A righteous thought opens the path to heaven. A wicked thought opens the door to hell. All phenomena arise from the mind. When goodness arises, it is paradise. When evil arises, it is hell." This was the lesson Zen Master Hakuin wanted to impart to the samurai.